Courthouse after allegedly trying to tamper with the jury in the Karmelo Anthony trial for the murder of Austin Metcalf. This trial is capturing a lot of attention, unfortunately, for the public. None of it is being transmitted over broadcast means like audio or video. And what we're seeing is the news is being prohibited from even bringing in their cell phones, so we're not even getting any live tweets or anything during the proceedings. Cambry was there. We also saw Savannah was there. We also saw Sarah Fields was there, and so we've got some big updates on exactly what went down during jury selection. But here's what Cambry said. I believe every news outlet is at the courthouse in Collin County today. It was packed. My parents go to church with the Metcalfs, the parents of the deceased, and everyone is bracing for the next round because of Karmelo's reason for stabbing Austin and the defense being now a size difference, which is why you have to stab somebody in the chest and kill them while they die in their brother's arms. So she posted that, and the way that this is all being conducted apparently is you have some people inside the courtroom, and then there's a media viewing room, and the media is sitting in this viewing room. And to share what that sounded like is Sarah Fields. But we have Savannah Hernandez, who is outside. She's reporting for Frontline's TPUSA, and they report that jury selection began. One woman was already removed from the courthouse after she was allegedly trying to film the potential jurors. Protesters supporting both Anthony and Austin Metcalf, the victim, gathered outside the courthouse. Strict media rules have been implemented to protect the integrity of the trial. Anthony, of course, charged with first-degree murder, fatally stabbing Austin Metcalf, and he admitted he did it. His only argument now is self-defense. Yes, I did the thing, but I was justified in doing the thing, therefore I'm not criminally liable. He has been on house arrest. He had a $1 million bond, but then they reduced that down to $250,000 for whatever reason. Anthony has already admitted to stabbing him. The trial is not about that. It's about self-defense. If convicted, he's ineligible for the death penalty. He was 17, but could face the maximum sentence of life in prison. Here's what Savannah said outside the courthouse explaining the scene there in Texas.
This is Savannah Hernandez in front of the Collin County Courthouse in McKinney, Texas for day one of the Karmelo Anthony trial. Now today and tomorrow is jury selection, and opening arguments for this trial are not until Thursday if the jury can be selected on time. Now to give you guys an idea of what has already happened so far, this morning you had somebody who was kicked out of the courthouse for trying to film potential jurors, and you already had protesters here on behalf of both Austin Metcalf and Karmelo Anthony, with the protesters for Karmelo Anthony coming out in greater numbers. Now, some quick pointers on this trial. What is not being discussed is whether or not Karmelo Anthony actually murdered Austin Metcalf. He has already admitted to that, stating that he acted in self-defense. But what is being debated is whether or not Karmelo Anthony acted in self-defense or whether he committed murder.
He committed murder, not self-defense.
Because Karmelo Anthony was only
because Austin Metcalf pushed him, don't mean he had the right to get stabbed.
For the death penalty. So even if he is found guilty, the maximum sentence that he's going to get is life in prison. Now, Karmelo Anthony is already facing a first-degree murder charge and was initially held on a $1 million bond that he did petition to get reduced to $250,000. He cited financial difficulties, and a Collin County judge ended up reducing that for him. So he has since been on house arrest and out on bond after being issued that. Now, a lot of the controversy in this case did surround the GoFundMe that was created by Karmelo Anthony's family. Now, the family raised over $500,000, and it was found out that they were living in a home that was almost $1 million. A neighbor alleged that they had bought a new vehicle, and a family spokesperson stated that they were going to be utilizing these funds for security, legal defense, and also for the fight against white supremacy, stating that the criticism, the harassment, and threats that Karmelo Anthony were receiving after the stabbing incident were a direct result of white supremacy and racism in the nation. Now, simultaneously, the Metcalf family is also dealing with quite a bit of harassment and threats as well, and they were swatted 3 separate times, just to give you guys a reminder of what happened in the lead up to this case. Now, again, there have been extremely strict rules imposed on the media for this trial, and just to give you guys an idea of how secure they are trying to keep the courthouse grounds, the entire road behind me has been blocked off. They have specific places for protesters. There's also a strict curfew, and nobody can be on courthouse grounds from 11 p.m. to 6 a.m. And law enforcement has also secured a separate entrance for Karmelo Anthony and his family to exit and enter the courtroom. So an idea of, again, not only the strict gag order that has been put in place by this judge, the strict media rules, but also the other levels of precaution that are being taken to ensure that everybody in the courthouse and around the courthouse is safe and protected. So keep following along all week because I will be on the ground covering this trial. Keep following me for more updates.
Amazing. Thank you, Savannah Hernandez, and she's over at Sav Says on X, and they're also posting from the Frontlines TP USA main account, and there will be a lot more to come, no doubt about it. Now, another person who is there inside is Sarah Fields. Sarah is censored, and she says in day one, she's got a lot of updates. She went into the courtroom, took a bunch of notes, and then came back and shared this with us after the close of day one. Said, I arrived at the Collin County Courthouse at approximately 6:30 a.m. for day one of the Karmelo Anthony trial. Now, the first thing that became apparent was security. Everyone entering the courthouse had to pass through screening. Cell phones and electronic devices were prohibited. The only items I brought with me were a notepad, a pen, and my sunglasses. So not even going to get any live tweeting from the media room. After passing through security, I made my way toward the courtroom area. The courthouse features a large, wide hallway leading to the jury assembly area. It was packed. There were so many potential jurors and members of the public present that you could not see the end of the hallway. Just before reaching the jury assembly area, there is a left turn into the ceremonial courtroom, which serves as the public viewing room. It holds roughly 60 people in the gallery. We were among the first to arrive, but the doors were locked. Several members of the sheriff's department were stationed outside. One deputy was carrying a suppressed AR rifle chambered in 9mm. While we waited, a heavy-set man wearing a Hawaiian shirt repeatedly stared in our direction, leering at them. At one point, he sat very close to us. As he walked past me, he quietly said the word, demon. Demon. As more people arrived, the crowd continued to grow. Several people who claimed to be from California arrived, wearing purple shirts, purple hoodies, jeans, and purple do-rags wrapped around their heads. Others wore tank tops, shorts, hoodies, and baseball caps, and other casual attire that appeared inconsistent with what most people would consider courtroom business attire. And purple is Karmelo's favorite color. That's nice. Now, the tension in the hallway was palpable. You could almost cut it with a knife. And let's pause there and just go back to this video. Was she describing these ladies who were there protesting right here with the purple stuff? And just notice the difference between these two crowds. So you've got this group of people in favor of Karmelo Anthony with their Karmelo Anthony shirts on, doing dances. They've got a bongo drum, and it looks like she has, what are those things called? Tambourines, playing some songs. And then on the other side, you've got just a somber memorial for a dead man called Austin. He deserved better. We deserve better. On the other side, they're doing like a celebration festival or something. So the tension obviously was palpable. You could almost cut it with a knife. At approximately 8:52 a.m., I approached one of the deputies and asked how seating was going to work. My concern was that if no line was formed, people would rush the entrance once the doors open. His response surprised me. He said, I'm really going into this just as blind as you are. At that point, I made the executive decision to start a line myself. I walked to the front near the security table where purses were being checked and planted my feet. Within seconds, the crowd surged toward the courtroom entrance. The hallway against the wall became shoulder to shoulder. Most of the individuals rushing forward appeared to be Karmelo Anthony supporters. It was a tense moment. People were packed together so tightly that it became slightly nerve-wracking. I did not move. When the doors finally opened, I was among the first 10 to 15 people admitted into the courtroom. I immediately made my way to the front row, and then we waited for another hour and a half. At one point, members of the public seated in the front were asked to move because, quote, family needed those seats. We complied, and I'm sure the family's like 100 people long now. The situation raised questions in my mind. Why were family members being mixed in with the public seating area? I waited to see who the seats were being reserved for, but shortly afterward, deputies informed us that we could move back because they had decided to, quote, seat the family elsewhere. Not long after, someone informed those gathered in the room that the viewing screens would likely not be turned on. Jury selection was not really happening in a way that the public would find eventful. Jurors were being given packets, completing paperwork, and being screened for eligibility. At that point, I decided to walk around the courthouse. As I exited the courtroom, I encountered Karmelo Anthony supporter and TikTok creator called John Effect. He recognized me immediately. We spoke briefly and shook hands. He was professionally dressed and respectful during our interaction. And here's one pamphlet or flyer that was handed out. Murdered, Austin Metcalf, 2007 to 2025. On April 2nd, Austin Metcalf, 17-year-old student at Memorial High, was fatally stabbed in a savage attack during a high school track meet. Austin's murderer has subsequently been released from jail just hours after a judge reduced his bond from $1 million to $250,000. Very nice benefit for him that is often not afforded to people like, Kyle Rittenhouse. But in the days following the incident, Austin's family has faced harassment and received swatting calls, with SWAT teams responding to their home. Republican Governor Greg Abbott has yet to make a statement about the case, saying white children are victimized daily and America's anti-white system denies us the right to collectively demand justice. NOVA, N-O-V-A, stands in solidarity with all victims of anti-white violence, and we demand justice for Austin. Now, this is a nonprofit organization built from a national network of volunteer communities, associated projects. We seek to build a nation within a nation in order to provide community, security, opportunity, and advocacy to those who recognize the absence of those nation-defining features in the current status quo. Posterity, integrity, security. That flyer handed out during the trial. Now, part two is, after meeting John and walking out of the courtroom area, I passed directly by Dominique Alexander, one of the individuals on Karmelo Anthony's legal team. He saw me, but he said nothing. In fact, he almost seemed perplexed as I walked by. A short time later, I witnessed sheriff deputies escorting an African-American woman out of the courthouse hallway. She was wearing a pink shirt with lace sleeves. Deputies were accusing her of jury tampering. I later learned she was allegedly connected to the Anthony family and had reportedly been caught recording members of the jury pool. Outside the courthouse, the atmosphere was just as interesting. Several supporters of Karmelo Anthony were live streaming on TikTok and wearing Karmelo-themed shirts and banging their bongo drums. There were also multiple members of the Black Panther movement present. In addition, there's a group called Nova, distributing flyers. They said they stand in solidarity with all victims of anti-white violence. When I asked Jeff Metcalf about the group. He told me, I don't know who they are. By approximately 11 a.m., we decided to leave. Nothing was taking place inside the viewing courtroom. The screens remained off. Nobody could see anything. There were no proceedings being shown to the public. Day one ultimately consisted of juror processing questionnaires and administrative matters, and so from a courtroom perspective, it was largely uneventful. From an observational perspective, however, it was interesting. And at least one individual was escorted out over allegations of jury tampering. So she'll be back for a continuation of the jury selection. Hopefully the pool will be much more narrowly whittled down. And based on my observation throughout the morning, the crowd appeared to be overwhelmingly around 95% of Karmelo Anthony supporters. Wild. So that is the report from Sarah Fields, and maybe we'll see some more bongo tambourine ladies